Hello, PokeNet. In this video, we are going to be going over the raid battle format and going over some rules, some good cards to put into the boss deck, and some good decks to do in this format as the player.
Yeah, so we're excited. We love this format. It's been a lot of fun. It's kind of been one of the best ways we found to be playing kind of over the summer, and it's also the only Pokemon TCG where you work as a team, and so that's also fun when we go to like league nights and stuff, and you get to play with your buddy to go against the raid boss.
And I am usually the raid boss. I put together a deck, which we will go over later in the video, and let's get into it.
Yeah, so let's go see what we think and go over some rules here real quick.
Okay, so as it say, as it says in the materials, it says one deck per player, any format. So that means you could do expanded, you could do gym leader, which I wouldn't recommend, but you could do it
Could.
if you wish. And then there is the, of course, standard format.
Right, and you can do the stuff you're playing right now, right? And then, realistically, this is usually made for 5 players, right? So you have 4 people going up against the one raid boss.
And then it does work with 2, 3, or 4 players. You have to have at least one player and one raid boss. You can't have more than one raid boss, but
Yeah, and so again, a fun format that you got a bunch of different things, and so um, yeah, so you've got a raid to make uh, the raid battle part of this is you need a jumbo card.
it could be any jumbo card, but if you are wanting a fun thing, there are some that are better than others. I would say that if you have a jumbo mega Kangaskhan, that might be fun, but again, it works with any jumbo card.
Yeah, so the jumbo card is the raid boss, right, who you're playing against, and then they'll need a 60 card deck of their own to go with the raid boss.
Yeah.
Um,
And then you're gonna need dice, damage counters, and condition markers, but only condition markers if the players are gonna have the condition. We can get into why here in a bit, but yeah.
right. All right, so one thing, so how do you get set up, right? Isn't it pretty similar to a normal
Yeah,
game?
so players draw 7 cards, basic Pokemon to the active spot, and 6 prize cards is how the player sets up. Um, they ha- they can put as many basic Pokemon as they want, like in a normal game, and yeah. Then boss, the raid Pokemon, place the raid boss in the center or wherever you are wanting to make it easy for the players to
To
see
see what's
it.
going on, right?
Yes, because there will be Pokemon tools, energies, and stuff like that, which the players might need to interact with to know how to do effectively.
Yeah, and then it says on here, right, select difficulty. Well, we built 2 different decks, but we have a few others we're working on, but one of them in particular is way tougher, and so it's good to let the players know against the raid boss. Is this a really hard deck? Is it average? Right? Where does it sit?
Yeah, and then um, over there in player special rules, it says players go first, which makes it so that the raid boss doesn't just one shot everybody. Players may evolve on their first turn. We think that you should probably make it so that only Pokemon played during the setup stage should
Be
be able
evolved.
to
Yeah.
evolve. That way, people can't just go into their deck, find Pokemon, and instantly evolve them.
Yeah, so I think if we look at the rules of Pokemon, a Pokemon can evolve if it's been in play for a turn. So what we're saying is, if you start with the Pokemon in play, then it counts, right? That um, that if it was on in the active spot or on your bench during your setup, you can then evolve on that turn.
Yeah. And then players may play supporters on their first turn. Um, Again, we do this that way people can get stuff set up and not be stuck with bad hands.
Yeah, so you can play supporters on your first turn, and you get to attack on your first turn.
Yeah.
So things that are a little bit different than the normal TCG for sure.
Yeah, and players all attack at the same time, so that way it wouldn't be like, hey, mine does more damage for each damage counter. In this format, that wouldn't do any damage, I don't believe.
Right, wouldn't help you out. But so a couple of things we look at here, right, is it says all the players take their turn together, right? The raid boss is separate, but all the players play together.
Yeah.
And then it says you can play as many supporters as there are number of players.
Yeah. And the player team may use supporters up to the number of players present. So, like, if there are two people, you would only be able to use one supporter. Yes, the raid boss is a person, but they aren't part of the player team. So that means if I was just the raid boss and my dad was a player, he could only play one supporter.
Right.
But if there are two players, two supporters, three players, three supporters, and so on.
Right, and then you can play supporters for each other, right? So you can play up to a total. Again, if say there's 4 players going up against one raid boss, you could play 4 supporters. One person could play all 4 of those supporters, but they can play them for other players.
Yeah, so like if I'm playing a Raging Bolt and my dad's playing a Raging Bolt and I have no energy and he has a bunch, he might Crispin for me, that way I can get energy accelerated. Also, if you play a boss, you cannot boss yourself. You can boss another player, but not yourself.
Right, so that's something we'll get into a little bit closer. But the boss's orders work differently because you can't boss the raid Pokemon, right? But
Yep.
and then it says that the cards you play do affect everybody, right? So if you play a Judge or an Iono,
Everybody gets 4 cards.
including the boss. So you don't want to give them more cards.
Yeah. But that means that if you play Prime Catcher, everybody retreats, but I think you get to choose. So, like, you could be like, okay, I'll put up his Raging Bolt, I'll put up his Teal Mask Overpawn, and you can just make it so that everybody has the Pokemon that they need to
In the active,
proceed.
right? Yeah. So again, so during the player's turn, they can play the 4 supporters, but then otherwise you can play as many items like you can for yourself. You can attach one. You know, you play your normal turn. The only difference in the raid battle is you get to play a supporter for a teammate, and you get to
play supporters for you.
Right?
Along with, well, I think this will be in later things, but also stadiums affect all players and the raid boss. So that means, like, if you put in a academy at night, then everybody can use it.
Yeah, and only one stadium can be in play at a time. So that's something to be aware of as you're placing those stadiums, right?
Yeah, and so let's go on to the raid Pokemon special rules. So the raid boss deck draws cards for each player +1. So that means that if it's a full party of 5 people, including the raid boss, they would draw 5 cards.
Yeah, so they get to draw a card for their turn, and then they draw one for each person they're playing against.
Yep.
And then, like it says, those cards get drawn and they're immediately resolved. They use those cards immediately. So if it's an energy, it gets attached straight.
Immediately.
Right.
So like if I were to get my 5 cards and I draw 3, and they would probably be played after the cards that I already have in my hand. So if I reveal a judge, they'll get shuffled back into the deck.
Right. And so the raid battle boss can attach as many energies per turn. They can play as many supporters per turn. They use those cards they draw until they have no more cards in hand.
And they can bump multiple stadiums, and they
And
can bump multiple Pokemon tools, well, of the raid boss.
right.
So, like, if there is a good Pokemon tool and the raid boss reveals a worse one in their matchup, they're still gonna have to replace the Pokemon tool.
Right. And so that's what it says here, right? Is only one tool can be attached at a time, so they have to bump the tool that's already attached.
Yep.
And again, the raid boss has no hand at the end of their turn. They have no prize cards, and they have no bench. It's just the
Making
one.
some card
Yeah.
effects useless.
Yeah.
And I think in this case, Unfair Stamp might not give it, but it's up to the raid boss interpretation whether they are like, okay, well, you guys are being really powerful, so I'm gonna have 2 extra cards to draw, or something along those lines. Or if they're 2 ahead, they could even be like, okay, during my turn, I'll only draw 2 cards instead of the normal 5.
Right, and so then as they go through, right, and the raid boss uses cards, then they go to the discard pile. Once they run out of cards in the deck, the discard pile just gets shuffled back into their deck, and they reuse all those cards.
Yep. The raid Pokemon may use a GX or V Star attack more than once per game. That way, it won't just be like, oh, yeah, you have used my one V Star attack, so I can't use it ever again, and I'm stuck with a worse attack.
Right, and then and also the raid boss recovers from all special conditions. It's interesting. We've played this a little bit different, but this says it can be po- poisoned or burned, and it takes the damage from those effects, but it's immediately recovers as soon as it becomes the raid boss's turn. So just be aware of that, right? You can't confuse it, and it stays confused. They don't get paralyzed
And
or fall
item
asleep.
lock does not work, so don't try Badooing the raid boss. That's gonna do nothing. All that's gonna
Right.
happen is your Badoo will be sent to the discard pile.
Yeah, so be aware of that, right? It can't be it while it can get special conditions, it recovers immediately. So a lot of those attackers and stuff just aren't as good as they should be.
Also, all energy costs on the raid Pokemon are colorless, including in ability stuff, which I will show you later when we go to ours.
Yeah, so essentially, all the energy costs are colorless, and all the energy are like rainbow energy. It's like every energy.
So,
Um,
like, if an ability says to discard an energy to do it, you can do it without having that certain type of energy.
Specific energy, right?
But you can make the energy a specific type in your game. That way it would be themed. But again, you do not have to.
Right, and then it says when you use an attack from the raid boss, we'll look at when we get into an actual matchup. We'll show this a little bit closer, but you discard the energy attached. So the raid boss has to have the correct energy number attached, right? So if the energy costs 4 energy, but they only have 3 energy attached,
They can't do it.
they can't do that attack.
And also, raid boss Pokemon attacks damage all players, and to decide an attack, you roll a dice. The raid boss gets to correspond each attack to a certain amount of numbers on the dice, but it does have to be equal. So,
Right, and then once you've done your attack, you discard the amount of energy that that attack took, right? So if your energy took 2 energy and you have 5 attached, you would just discard the 2 energy and have 3 left. Okay.
and then we'll go back up to go over to the win conditions. The raid boss Pokemon. Players take a prize card each time one of their Pokemon is knocked out. So that means instead of the raid boss taking a prize card each time they knock out, because they don't have prizes, the players take the
Right.
prizes.
So if your Pokemon gets knocked out, you would take the prizes for it. So if it's a Mega Pokemon,
You
would
take 3 prizes.
right. You would take the 3 prizes.
If you take all 6 of your prize cards, you are out of the game. But if you were to run out of Pokemon, you still get to play for a bit. So
Yeah, so it's different than the standard TCG. Say you have no more Pokemon in play, you get to keep playing until you get a Pokemon in play. Or say you deck out, you get to play with the rest of the cards in your hand. So the way you lose, quote unquote, lose.
is by taking all of your prizes, and the way that the raid boss wins is for all players to take all of their prizes, resulting in everybody being out. So the raid boss wins.
Correct.
So, the players. When the raid boss Pokemon takes damage, no damage counters get placed, because we'll get into that later. The total damage dealt by the players Pokemon per turn is converted into the number of cards to be sent to the raid boss's Lost Zone. So at the end of the turn, the raid boss Pokemon will do calculations and revert all of the damage to cards to get rid of. If the cards are sent to the Lost Zone is a decimal amount, round down. So even if it's 0.9, you still round down, which 0.9 shouldn't. Well, it
Yeah,
happen,
no, but yeah, realistically, I think those are things you can kind of decide on how you want that to happen.
Okay, so
But we'll get into a scenario on how this works, right? And so
this is the calculation. Card sent to the Lost Zone equals total damage divided by 10x the numbers of players. So like if it's 1,000 damage and there are 4 players, it would be divided by 40 to go to 25.
yeah, so it's pretty good here. It again, the players all attack at the same time, and then they add what their attack was together, right? So this is showing you what they have. So they do 200, 180, and 130 for each player, which is 510 damage. Now you don't immediately get rid of those cards because the raid boss is going to be healing. They have a lot of healing cards. They're going to be decreasing that amount of damage, and so you wait till the end of their turn, and say they didn't heal that turn. It says in this scenario, right, that they have 3 players, so you divide 510 by 30, which is 17 cards that the raid boss would then put in the Lost Zone.
Yes, and also the raid boss, I should say, is not affected by abilities which makes it impossible to hit the Pokemon, such as Crustle. The raid boss does not have a rule box unless it helps with a card, so it would hit through Crustle, so don't try and play it. And Also, if you were to play Dusk Noir and use the Dusk Noir, you would take a prize, but that would be extra damage to the raid boss.
Yeah, so certainly things to keep thinking of. So those are some of the basic rules, right? So this is a great page to check out. We'll put a link in the description so you guys can go check this out. And then we're going to check out one of our decks and some of the cards we think are really cool within this.
This
Um,
is definitely the more stronger one. I made it myself, thinking that it would be a pretty cool deck. So, our raid boss is, of course, Mega Greninja EX, with Mortal Shuriken and Ninja Spinner. It is a good attacker. We run about
so
20 energy.
yeah, it's a good idea to run. It says anywhere from like 18 to 20 energies for your raid deck is pretty normal. And we put just water in there, but again, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, we use water because all of the attack cost is water, and plus it's themed, so why not?
Yep, and then you're going to have probably 12 to 15 supporter ish.
Don't overrun your deck with supporters because since they have so much good effects and you can use an infinite amount of them during your turn, it could potentially make it unwinnable.
Yeah, but go ahead and show off some of your favorite supporters. And again, you can use expanded. We like using some that we just don't get to play in standard. And so Dan is one of our favorite because you get to play. You,
Rock, paper, scissors with a player of your choice, and it says draw two cards. You and your opponent play rock, paper, scissors until someone wins. If you win, draw another two cards. So you could either draw two cards or you could draw four cards.
right, and the more you draw, the more cards you get to use as the raid boss. And then here's another card Parker loves, and he thinks it's
This
crazy
is a
good.
very strong one in raid battle. It is copycat, and it is shuffle your hand into your deck, then draw a card for each card in your opponent's hand. You choose one opponent because otherwise you would just draw too many cards. But if you really need to, you could choose all of your opponents and draw all of their hands.
Right, but then you also want some supporters that are disruptive. We have like a Zero-6, we have
Avery.
Avery, we have a bunch of different cards in here that are good to disrupt your opponent. And then again, you want to heal a ton. So almost all, not all, but a lot of our item cards are going to be healers too. But we have things like Cook, um, Pokemon Center Lady. Those are all cards that are good to have, again, to help with healing.
And then Wallace is also a good card. Um, and in this, each player can choose to draw a card and then it would add. So you could potentially draw up to seven cards.
Yeah, crazy. So if you look at some of our great item cards, this, what's this one called, buddy? I can't remember.
This is Sweet Honey.
Sweet Honey's pretty dang cool.
It is choose one of your Pokemon, which you only have one, and then flip a coin until you get tails. For each head, heal 40 damage off of the raid boss. So
Right, you just get to keep heal until you hit tails. You also have something like Lucky Ice Pop.
which is heal 20 damage, flip a coin. If heads, it goes back into your hand. So we just flip until we get tails. That's how much we heal.
Yeah, and then we have other things in here like the
Hyper
potions
Potion, which is heal 120 damage from one of your Pokemon that has at least 2 energy attached. You discard the 2 energy, but 120 is a
a
huge
lot.
amount. And then potions just heal 30 right off the bat. And then we do have trainer's mail to try and get more trainer cards into our hand.
Yeah, and so you get to adjust, right? The better the cards are, the better the raid boss will be. Um,
And the more difficult it will be for players
to
win.
knock out, right? And then you also have we have a variety of tools. Again, some of these are just disruption tools.
Such as handheld fan to energy disrupt. There is also Spirit Mask, which anytime your opponent deals damage, they discard a card from their hand. And we also have Tool Jammer to shut off Pokemon tools, and Pot Helmet to take 30 less damage.
Yeah, and then we also have stadiums in here. Same thing to just disrupt or take less damage.
Lucky Helmet makes it so that you draw an extra 2 cards if you took damage.
Right.
Training Court helps you get energy from the discard pile. Rose Tower helps you draw, and then Collapse Stadium disrupts the bench.
Yeah, and one thing we didn't talk about with the stadiums is the players can bump one stadium per turn, right? So say there's no stadium in play, and Parker really needs to put in Area Zero Under Depths, but I really need Forest of Vitality.
I can't put in Area Zero if he puts in Forest of Vitality.
Well, you could bump one, right? So you got to decide which.
You can play
Like,
one per
you can
turn.
bump one per turn.
Oh.
Yeah. So if there's already a stadium in play, we'd have to choose which one. But again, we can communicate because we're on a team. But say I would use Force of Vitality first because I could use its ability, and then he would put in Area Zero because then he could use Area Zero after I've already evolved and stuff. So
Yeah.
things to kind of keep tabs with. Again, we love this format. It's been a lot of fun, and we're going to get on it here. We'll have another video coming up that'll show you how you actually battle with this. So we'll do some quick little matchup on what it looks like to play against.
And I am going to be using a different deck for it, so you'll see our other raid battle deck. So, in all, thank you guys for watching. Have a Poketastic day.